let me give you the breaking story now. This story is a story that we actually have been following. And when we first heard, I tried not to believe it, but I knew it to be true. And when the Tea Parties and the 912 groups said, can you help? We tried to put you in touch with the people that could help. The Internal Revenue Service, the IRS, has apologized today for inappropriately flagging conservative political groups for additional reviews during the 2012 election to see if they were violating their tax-exempt status. If you remember, we had 912 groups and Tea Party groups calling us and saying, Glenn, we are getting letters from the IRS. Everybody was getting a letter from the IRS, and I said, that seems like too much to be a coincidence here. Lois Lerner, who heads the IRS unit that oversees tax-exempt groups, said organizations that include the word Tea Party or Patriot in their applications for tax-exempt status were singled out for additional reviews. They are using the IRS as a weapon. Good news, America. The IRS has just, I believe, doubled their staff because the IRS is the one in charge of all of your medical records and all of your medical stuff. They are the enforcement arm coming in 2014. Congratulations. Now the tax man is going to be there helping make medical decisions. But I'm sure nothing would go out because we can trust the government. Remember, the president said those who tell you not to worry about, to tell you to worry about tyranny. Tyranny is a thing of the past. Tyranny doesn't happen. Well, what is tyranny? Is tyranny using the IRS as a weapon? Is tyranny making sure that you're harassed by the government if you happen to disagree with the government? That certainly seems like tyranny, Mr. President. Lerner said the practice, and the lies continue, the practice initiated by low-level workers in Cincinnati was wrong, and she apologized while speaking at a conference in Washington. So let me see if I have this right. By the way, attorneys, if there is an attorney within the sound of my voice, this is a civil rights violation. Civil rights attorneys, hear me, attorneys. There's enough of you. Earn your money in a good way. This is a civil rights case. Attorneys and Tea Party patriots, I know you are not the kind that does this. You are not the kind that tries to take money and just get rich off of the backs of somebody else. But the only way to stop this government from doing things like this is to make them fear the court system. Now, the real problem with that is we have a president who doesn't mind the collapse of our economy, who's trying to bankrupt us. So, you're really kind of torn because they'd probably like those civil rights cases to be drawn up, and so the people have to pay a lot of money out of the Treasury. Many conservative groups complained during the election that they were being harassed by the IRS. They said the agency asked them an inordinate number of questions to justify their tax-exempt status. Stu, that doesn't go far enough. Could you find somebody, write to Yvonne Donnelly from 912, write to Michael Opelka at The Blaze, have him get all of the questions, because I remember, do you guys remember going through them on the air one time? I got a couple of them from the IRS, from the 912 group that were giving them to us and said, Glenn, please tell me that this is normal. And they were asking, they weren't just asking for the information on taxes. They were asking who's on the board, who are the children of the people on the board. They were asking all kinds of questions. It was information gathering. Certain tax-exempt charitable groups can conduct political activities, but it cannot be their primary activity. This is breaking news now from The Blaze. They apologize. Oh, okay.
Amazing.
It's amazing.
Because when I first heard that story, it's probably somebody being oversensitive. These things do happen. We got so many reports at the time. It became overwhelming.
Yeah, and I don't think you remember. You wouldn't say this if you must not have been there for the day or you didn't see those things. But when we got the questions that the IRS were making these people fill out, there was no question.
Yeah, I'm just saying my initial reaction when I first, because we were getting a couple calls, a couple emails from people, and then it started to build. We got these questions, and now the IRS is actually admitting they targeted Tea Party members
during the political
election
campaign
unfairly.
Yeah,
I mean, that is as clear as it can
possibly
possibly
get. Can I say something? When Nixon died, no one lied. This was all about a campaign,
or vice versa.
When he lied, people told the truth about him finally.
Yeah, no one died. When Nixon lied, no one died. Thank you. When Nixon lied, no one died. This was all about a campaign. The Benghazi cover-up, that was all about a campaign.
Yep.
That involved the press. That involved the State Department. That involved the White House. That involved the military. That involves all of it. It must be restored, restoring honor.
So sadly, when this administration lied, people died.
4 people died. 4 people died. The Benghazi story is the deference to the Muslim Brotherhood and the fact that they do not want to admit that we are in bed with the Muslim Brotherhood, that we are running guns against international law. We are running guns to the Syrian rebels, Muslim Brotherhood. That's what that story was all about. I'm convinced. We know we have the ship's captain's name. We have the ship running an enormous amount of guns. It appears that the ambassador who died, he was the go-between. He was the one doing it. That's why they turned the drones around and said, you can take pictures of everything. What were they getting out? Why was no one on the ground immediately going in and looking at that compound? What were they waiting to get out of there? What did they have to make sure that a wet team came in and cleaned it all up? That's what really happened. And then this president changed all of these things for an election. And no one had the balls to say anything. Now, for an election, the IRS has admitted that they targeted Tea Party groups. Now, I have to tell you something. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, an atheist, a preacher. I don't care what you are. If you don't see the danger of the IRS being used as a tool to silence political enemies, you get what you deserve. Unfortunately, so will the rest of us. You better make sure you're on the right side. Let me just say this. If you give these people power, you better hope that your progressive party of the Democrats always stay in power. I fear the power of the progressives in either party. But leftists, you better ensure in the next 3 months, the next 3 years, and they are, you better ensure that your party never loses power. Because if you take a Republican progressive and you give him this much power and you give him reason to want to put you out of business, they'll expand their power. And it will, I've said this when I was on Fox, I said this, somebody's going to grab the pendulum. Somebody will grab the pendulum, and you better hope that your side is the one. That's why we have said, run from the progressives in both parties. Reduce the size of government, because it will either be the fascist or it will be the communist, but it will be one of the two. You must not do the European model. We must have small government, libertarian freedom, and it's going to get ugly and it's going to get dicey. But if you don't see that your government has lied to you, has allowed people to die, and then lied about that, asked others to lie, The State Department demoted those who questioned. The State Department then threatened those if they would talk to, you're not to talk to any congressional investigator. When your president came out and said two things. One, we're just going to get to the bottom of this. We just want to find out. I'm not going to say anything because we want to find out. At the same time, his State Department is threatening people and saying, you don't talk to the Congress. You don't talk to anybody. Your president was lying to you. Do you want a president? Do you want a State Department that will sit silently? This isn't about Hillary, and this isn't about our current president. This is about anybody sitting in those positions. Do you want a State Department that will allow your ambassador to be killed, brutally killed, dragged through the streets? Quite honestly, we've never talked about it, but I believe sodomized. Do you want that to happen with your resources there to stop that, to protect him, to help him? Do you want those resources pulled off to the side for a political reason? Do you want that to be your government? Do you want that power to remain in people's hands like that? You know, let me ask you. The activist for gay rights, you should look into what your government has allowed to happen in the Islamic world. You should look into what has happened in the Islamic world, and your government says nothing about it. You want to talk about gay rights here in America? We should probably start with the Muslim Brotherhood. We should probably see what the Muslim Brotherhood is doing. You want to hold up Egypt as an example? You want to help them get in power? You should look at what they do to homosexuals. There's so much for us to unite on. There's so much for us to unite on. We are different people. We have different upbringings. We have different lives. We have different talents. But we shouldn't have different principles. Love is universal. Do unto others is universal. Standing up for the little guy is universal. Telling the truth is universal. This time it's not about an affair. This time it is about scaring people away from standing up for what they believe. If there was anyone that was trying to use the IRS to shut down even Planned Parenthood and intimidate and to keep them silent, if there was anyone that was using the IRS to go after gay rights groups and silence them, I would stand by your side. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with Planned Parenthood. I don't agree with any of it. But I agree with the basic human right of being able to assemble, being able to move forward, being able to be free of harassment from a government agency that has the complete power over every aspect of your life. Let's hope to God that you don't have to prove me right. Let's hope to God that you don't have to wait until I actually do have to come to your defense. Come to the defense of truth.